Alyssa Sanders is 28 years old, 5'4", with dirty blonde, shoulder-length hair and emerald green eyes. She may appear as your average American woman, but this is not the case. Ever since her tragic accident while working on an assembly line for Schneider's 100% all-beef wieners in 2010, she hasn't been the same. By miracle, she survived being sucked through a boiler. The recovery was as long and painful as it was rewarding. Somewhere between the time of the accident and the months that followed in the hospital, Alyssa gained the ability of super-sensitive smell. She perceived this as an opportunity handed to her on a golden platter, a gift from God to start fresh and experience a brand new workforce. She would never return to a factory again. Now known as Olfaction Mistress, Alyssa is now the chief officer at the Border Patrol Station between Mexico and New Mexico. She is responsible for seizing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of drugs and paraphernalia that were on their way to the United States. However, as a result of her accident in the boiler, Olfaction Mistress developed an extreme sensitivity to magnets, which may lead to her eternal downfall. Sarah Fusion used to work in a U.S. government laboratory in her hometown, Nassau, Puerto Rico. One day, during a vital experiment, she accidentally fell into a particle accelerator. This caused her to gain the ability to restructure cellular and atomic matter, or in other words, to transform people and objects into different things. Unfortunately, Sarah's life took a turn for the worse as she entered the drug industry and began to use her special power for unlawful purposes. The U.S. government has made several attempts to exploit her. Sarah can only be stopped by the presence of cute boys. On a beautiful Wednesday morning at the border, Alyssa was assigned a new duty for the day. Sarah Fusion is on her way to Florida with mass amounts of cocaine and must be stopped, a commander warned. Agents Cuthbert, Mordecai, and Osvaldo will be accompanying you as you travel north for sea patrol. Olfaction Mistress did not complain one bit about the task she was assigned, as her fellow partners were the three best-looking at the station. Approximately 3 hours into their mission, Mordecai thought he spotted a small ship a ways ahead of them that was also traveling up the east coast of the U.S. That must be her, he assumed out loud. The rest of the team believed Mordecai, as he had been commended for his keen eye on previous excursions. He's right, Olfaction Mistress confirmed. I can smell the drugs from here. The three men were astonished by her power as she pressed on the gas. The boat lurched forward toward the culprit. As the team approached the small, innocent-looking little boat, they spotted an extremely tanned, blonde woman at the steering wheel. Although her appearance did not fit the description of Sarah that they had been given, Olfaction Mistress's nose told a different story. That blonde hair must be a wig she's using as a cover, she inferred. The tan skin, dark eyes, weight, and height measurements seem about right. With that, the team put their siren on, and to their dismay, the woman complied and slowed down so they could catch up. Olfaction Mistress was the first aboard Sarah's boat. As she stepped foot onto the vessel, the strong, drug-like smell vanished, leading to her utmost confusion. She introduced herself as Alyssa Sanders. I work for the law enforcement team at the border between Mexico and New Mexico, she explained. My duty today is to patrol the sea. I have a warrant to search all watercrafts about these waters. Your little boat won't take more than 5 minutes. I apologize for the inconvenience. You should be able to go about your way very shortly. Be my guest. I understand your protocol, the blonde woman replied carelessly. I hope you don't mind the smell as you make your way down to the lower compartment. You see, on my way to South Carolina, I came across a massive gas leak. In the middle of it, I found tens of dozens of little frogs, desperately trying to escape the weight of the oil. I took my net, scooped most of them up, and I planned to set them free on my arrival in the States. What an honorable gesture, Olfaction Mistress replied, and don't worry about the smell. I'm quite used to foul odors. With that, she shut the door to the basement compartment and walked down the stairs. The room was completely empty except for a fridge and a large container filled with frogs and toads of all shapes and sizes. Since the stench of the creatures was too strong for Olfaction Mistress to bear, she sauntered toward the fridge. As she pulled it open, she felt her body become rigid and helpless. It must be the magnets in the door, she said to herself as her mind filled with anxiety and dread. From behind her, Olfaction Mistress heard a maniacal cackle. Do you take me for a fool? I know exactly who you are, Alyssa Sanders, Sarah spat, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Now, what are you to do if I turn all my pet frogs into magnets? With a flick of her wrist toward the container, Olfaction Mistress watched the frogs transform into the very source of her demise. She felt her knees buckle beneath her as her body collapsed to the floor. Now that you're powerless, I will turn you into a guinea pig. As Sarah raised her hand to begin the transformation process on Olfaction, the compartment door swung open as her 3 male companions jumped down to her rescue. I am powerless in the presence of attractive boys, Sarah cried as the magnets transformed, not back into frogs, but into their original state of cocaine. Olfaction Mistress hopped onto her feet and yanked Sarah's hands behind her back. You're under arrest for the attempt to smuggle drugs across the country. Olfaction Mistress, along with her 3 partners, led Sarah Fusion up the stairs and onto their police boat, where they threw her in a holding cell and returned to the border station, where she was further transported and left to rot in the federal penitentiary of Sona.